Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for December 16th. It's the 16th already. December 16th is the 350th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, 351st in leap years, with 15 days remaining to the end of the year. And I guess 9 days to Christmas. From Wiktionary.org, today's word is reconciliation. Reconciliation is a noun that means the reestablishment of friendly relations, conciliation, and in the field of accounting, reconciliation is the process of comparing and resolving apparent differences between sets of accounting records or between accounting records and bank statements, receipts, etc. In Christianity, reconciliation is the end of estrangement between a human and God as the result of atonement. There are other definitions as well, but that will do for now. Reconciliation. I'd like to take a moment to mention that links to my research are included in the show notes. I ask you to give this video a like. The more interaction videos get, the better they do in YouTube. Helps the channel grow. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, I say that, and while the live is going, the comments are disabled, but you'll be able to comment later when it renders for replay. There's a link in the show notes to my This Day in History playlist, right down in the show notes, and I'll make sure to put one up in the iCards once the live is finished and we go to replay. And we're ready to start with today's history. This is the birthday of Catherine of Aragon, born December 16th in the year 1485. We've mentioned Catherine of Aragon before. She was a Spanish princess who became Queen of England as the first wife of Henry VIII. Catherine lived to the age of 50. In 1486, the King of Portugal sent an expedition to sail south. I think they were looking to go around Africa in hopes of finding a trade route to India that, instead of the lengthy and difficult overland route that they were currently using. The ocean voyage exploration task initially fell to a man named Bartholomew Diaz, who set out on this trip in 1847. He and his crew sailed south along the west coast of Africa, and they made it around the Cape of Good Hope, and I had pictures to show you. They're in there on the printer. Brilliant. They made it around the Cape of Good Hope and the southern tip of Africa, and they were aiming back up the east coast of Africa. And in terms of physical presence, it was a long way, but when you look at a map, they just barely made it around the corner of the bottom of Africa. It's a huge continent. Anyway, I'm sure it was not an easy trip, and once they made it around the bottom of Africa and were kind of headed back northeast in a generally northeasterly direction, for some reason that I'm not clear on, his crew refused to go on. His crew refused to go forward, and all the officers were unanimous in insisting that they go back, return to Portugal. So they got back to Portugal in December of 1488 after having been on the ocean for almost a year and a half, like 16 months and change. And while they did not make it to India, they did gain some useful information for future trips. And so it is that some 9 years later, when Vasco da Gama attempted a similar voyage looking for a sea route to India, on December 16th in 1497, da Gama and his crew passed the Great Fish River in Africa, where Bartolomeo Bartholomew Diaz and his crew having a time with the words today. It passed the Great Fish River, where Bartholomew Diaz and his crew had previously turned back to Portugal, and da Gama was the first European to reach India by sea. On December 16th, 1575, an 8.5 magnitude earthquake hit Chile. This is the birthday of Ludwig van Beethoven, born December 15th, 1770. Beethoven is considered to be one of the most influential composers of all time. He lived to the age of 53. On December 16th, 1773, members of the Sons of Liberty, disguised as Mohawk Indians, dumped hundreds of crates of tea into Boston Harbor in a protest against the Tea Act. I talk about this in more detail in last year's version of This Day in History for December 16th, and I will add that link to the iCards as well. Virginia was the first state to ratify the Articles of Confederation on December 16th, 1777. This document was actually called the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. That's a lot of names. It was an agreement among the original 13 states of the United States of America that served as its first constitution. The first two in a series of 4 severe earthquakes occurred on December 16, 1811, in and around New Madrid, Missouri. Quite a day for earthquakes, December 16 throughout history. On December 16, 1920, an 8.5 magnitude earthquake hit Gansu province in China. Theodore Cole and Ralph Rowe attempted an escape from Alcatraz prison on December 16, 1937. While a few people back here on the mainland would say afterwards that they thought that they'd seen the men after this escape, they were generally thought to have perished in the ocean, which is kind of why they selected Alcatraz to build prison on in the first place. It's really hard to get out of there. Just, the ocean is rough and cold, and I don't know if they made it or not, but on December 16, 1947, William Shockley, John Bardeen, and Walter Brattain built the first practical point contact transistor. And I talk about that in more depth in last year's episode of This Day in History for December 16. In some Vietnam War news, on December 16, 1965, General William Westmoreland sent the United States Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara a request for 243,000 more men by the end of 1966. And that's all I have for you today. Hope you learned something you didn't know before. I know I sure did. I always do. As always, links to my research are included in the show notes. The link to my This Day in History series is also in the show notes, and of course will be in the iCards. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you haven't already, and also consider subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share this video with others. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.